I'm Heather from here booktubes, and today is my October reading wrap up. In the month of October, I read 29 books. I DNF'd 13 of them, so I'm going to talk about 16 today. The majority of my actual reading happened in the first 10 days of October, honestly. So obviously, it's been a rough month. Reading may reflect higher or lower numbers because of that, and I don't know, reading's not really the important part anyways. The first one, going in chronological order as always, is Call and Response, which is New Heights number 3 by Christina C. Jones. I give this one 4 stars. This is a series of novellas based in one of her towns, the Heights, but this is like a newer generation. It's like an all-black town basically, where they have really invested in their community, and there's a lot of different business owners that we follow and things like that. This one, she is a poet, but she wants to break into singing, and he was like a pretty well-known singer, had a bad kind of solo career after his group broke up and has lost his confidence because of that. So she's a songwriter, obviously, so they write songs together, they produce them, they perform together for this music festival in the Heights that she is in charge of. Basically, it's 80 pages. There's a very abrupt ending. I think if you go into it knowing that you don't really get like a very satisfying conclusion, they're together and they're singing. That's kind of what you get. I think knowing that is helpful. I knew that. I was told that by Tama at Shades and Pages, and that honestly helps me to enjoy it more. Even reviews that have some element of critique in it can really help readers to enjoy your book more because they know what to expect and they can, plan accordingly. The next one is Her Orc King, which is Black Bear Clan number 1 by Zoe Ashwood. I gave this one 4 stars. So this is sweet orcs. They're going to be very kind, very considerate, just very sweet in general. She is rescued from the slave markets, and there's kind of a talk about that. They obviously don't condone slavery, and they try to save any that they can. So in this one, they can only have children with their mates. So his mother and father were obviously mates, but his mother was his father's sex slave, and he was very abusive. So you have a content warning for that. But overall, it's pretty much just a sweet orc one. Communication was not like the best. Then I read Embers, which is Kindled number 3 by Clara Kent. I gave this 5 stars. I adore Clara Kent's writing. It doesn't matter what she's writing. I just kind of love her books. So this one is her dystopian series, and one thing I really like about her books is she will have a more taboo relationship, but it's because of the setting. So it's because of the isolation, it's because of the world falling apart, it's because of the new reality, and that's why this thing that in any other world wouldn't work is working. And that one really gets addressed head on in this one, because is the father of her boyfriend. She and her boyfriend, they were high school sweethearts. They were never intimate or anything. He was dying of lung disease by the time she met his father, and his father, rescued them, and they live on this farm together while her boyfriend is dying. And then years and years and years go by. This book covers so many years. So she's like 17 when he meets her, and it even talks about it was quite a while before he had even an inkling of attraction to her, and he just like can't get over it. He can't get over the fact that she should not want to be with him. She should be with a nice boy her age. Like, it's just wrong. He can't get over it. And she is like, I get where you're coming from, but this is the world that we live in, and in this world, I choose you, and I think that you should respect me enough to believe that, especially when like, you're not trying to talk me into anything. I'm actively trying to talk you into it. But he can't deal, and that's a lot of their conflict, and there is like a breakup over that and stuff. So obviously, age gap, father, boyfriend, angst, years. But there's character excellence, and this is one where you don't have any flashbacks or anything. It's really well done time jumps. It's this interaction, and there was almost a moment, but no, and then it's another year later, and there's like almost a moment, but no, and then it's a year later, and we can just do above the clothes things or whatever. I don't know, there's a lot to it, and I just really enjoyed it because I'm not into taboo romance. I figured this out, right? I really don't like it because I'm just like, ugh. Like I'm icked out usually, but this one worked. It worked, and she went into a lot of depth and details for why it worked. Then I read No Place to Hide, which I gave 4 stars. So this is a carnival, and I think it's Halloween night, and he is a worker there, and she's a poor little rich girl, and they have this one-night stand. In the one-night stand, you have primal play, degradation, claustrophobia, blood play, clowns, and bondage, and like some exhibitionism and stuff. Like, there's a lot going on for this one-night stand, okay? Then kind of out of left field, you have the historical death of her twin, and then also him, like, killing his best friend accidentally and going to prison for it. It sounds to me like there will be a sequel to this, but I don't need it. I was just there for the kink and the steam. I don't care about their character growth. I don't care about the relationship. I don't care. I could not care less. I was just there for, you know, some fun primal play in like a haunted house type thing. That's really all I was there for. Then I read The House Witch #2 by Delemhach. I gave this 4 stars. I originally DNF'd this at 40%, and then for Becca's Bookopoly, I got a prompt that was something with this witch or something, and I was like, well, I'll just read this one. So in this book specifically, so the setup for this book is you have this house witch. He is kind of a mutation witch, so usually you have just the 4 elements, but there's a lot of witches that are mutated, and up to 50 years ago, the witches were actively hunted, so a lot of people are not open about being a witch for obvious reasons. His magic is kind of a very badly kept secret, and he ends up being the royal cook, and he has all sorts of shenanigans with the king, the queen, the 8-year-old prince, the captain, the guard, the knights, the court mage, the king's assistant, like the head of housekeeping, the lady that is the queen's best friend that is also like the spy master. Like there's just a lot going on that, you know, wouldn't usually happen for a commoner. But there's, in this book, the queen has had a lot of miscarriages historically, and she is pregnant, and she has a very difficult early delivery, and is likely not to survive. She does end up surviving, but like if you don't want any of that, it's pretty present on page. Like I would maybe just skip this one if you're worried about it. Also, his abusive father shows up, and his lack of agency in this series drives me up the wall. I hate it. I hate how he can't say no to nobility and the king and stuff, even though like they're friends, and I just hate there's just a lot where I don't like what he's made to do, even by people who like him. I don't love the setup for the 3rd book. Basically, he has to go with his abusive father and try to prevent a war between their countries, and I probably won't read it. Then I read Fate's Edge, which is The Edge #3 by Ilona Andrews. I gave this 5 stars. As much as this is like not the best Ilona Andrews series, I still love it so much, so that's why the high ratings. This one is a thief and con artist, and we got a lot of the side characters that I particularly wanted to see. This book is also, I would say, the least dark in the 4-book series. It is a series of companion standalones. I wouldn't really recommend reading them out of order. Like our hero here, we know because his cousin was the main character of the last book, and you know, things like that, but there's some plot that weaves through them. But overall, it has a lot of the Ilona Andrews goodness. Again, I wouldn't recommend starting here if you're not already through a bunch of their other series. Then I read A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, and I gave this 5 stars. And you might be like, Heather, that is a lot of high ratings in a row. And I would say that's because I DNF'd everything else. A House with Good Bones is a horror book, and I'm not a horror girly. I have been clear about that. However, I do love T. Kingfisher's writing. I needed a book with a bird on it, again for a readathon prompt, and I was like, well, this is it. This is what I'm gonna read. Because I already like T. Kingfisher, and, you know, I'm not afraid to DNF if I get creeped out or whatever. 5 stars. It's great if you're not really into horror. Obviously, I can't speak for you know, people who read the genre all the time, for them it might be like the most basic overdone thing. I don't know. But I know for me, as someone who's coming into it and, you know, doesn't really know a lot of the tropes or staples of the genre, it was really good. It wasn't too scary, all of that. It did still creep me out. I was creeped out at the end. I was really creeped out. It was the middle of the day and I was freaking out. So overall, I would say it's really good. It's about this woman in her 30s who goes home to her mother's house, and her mother is acting paranoid and things are different, and she is like excusing her grandmother for being racist and things, whereas that just was not how her mother ever was, and the daughter is honestly very confused about what's going on, and there's a little romance subplot with the handyman. Then I read Unstoppable by Shon. I gave this 5 stars. This is a content warning for a stalker and domestic abuse and an emotionally neglectful father. If you don't like reading about stalkers and stuff, this is not a sexy stalker. Let's just put that out there because I know that's common in dark romance. This is not a relationship with the stalker. She is a stalker and it's really heavy. It's like the whole plot of the book, and she's not telling her family or her friends, and her father finds out and makes her have this bodyguard who was also her one-night stand, and she's like not listening to the bodyguard. And so in a lot of ways, I think you might be very frustrated by the fact that she is in danger, and she's putting herself in more danger by not relying on her support system and not like getting any help. We open the book with their one-night stand, so we have a sex scene right away, and then it is a slow burn, and we don't have another sex scene until 70%. For the most part, they're not thrilled with each other, and they're stuck together because he's her live-in bodyguard while this issue persists. That's why they're together. Again, I'd be careful. The stalker is a escalating ex, and, you know, be careful with that. Then I read Fire in the Moonlight, which is Georgia Arcane number 3 and the final book in the series by Dria Andersen. I gave this one 4 stars. This is not my favorite series by Dria Andersen. These are wolf shifters, and then also you have like this witch magical family, and they have a curse of like this cat. So they shift at the moon, but not like a regular shifter. And the main character in this one, she talks to spirits. She has spirits following her. She's talking to her dead grandmother that we started the series off with, and he is the sheriff, and he kind of runs interference for the illegal activities of his wolf pack family. Overall, it was a really good series finale. I like Dria Andersen. Black Love Paranormal. Short book, slow ink, slow conflict. Like, if it sounds good, it's really good. Then I read Sinful Enforcer, which is Mafia Misfits number 6 by Asia Monique. I gave this one 3 stars, which maybe wasn't fair because I feel like maybe I did like this one more than like the previous one. I think I might have still given it 4 stars, but maybe I gave it 3. I don't know. This one was so much better edited. So if the typos and just the rushed editing in some of the other books, which I think has been fixed since, but she was just pumping these books out too quickly. This one she took her time with. None of that exists. It's perfectly edited. However, they just didn't really talk to each other, and he was like really into her and she was like absolutely not. And then they're like fake dating, like fake engaged kind of because of his ex, and they just stay engaged, and they weren't there. That was like their first date. So that just didn't really work for me. You know, content warnings of historical incest, abuse, father having a young boy have sex with grown woman in front of him. So those would be the heavy ones that I would caution against. His father was very powerful and very rich. He, you know, kind of rebelled against his father and is in the mafia, and she is the daughter of a head of mafia. And, you know, she's very capable, much like all of Asia Monique's other main characters, which I really like. I really like how good their family is, even though, like, his parents were really abusive and neglectful. he still had that bond with his sisters, and then he also had like the found family of the mafia, and then she had a very supportive family and friends. Asia Monique does that really well, giving them a good support system, giving them each other's respect and consideration, and also they are capable of taking care of themselves. Then I read In the Dead of Night by Dead Petals. I gave this one 2 stars. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was very good, to be honest, but you have a stalker and she is like laying in wait for him, so they're like, they have a romance. She's into taxidermy, so if you don't want to read that, she sleeps with her friend to make him jealous. And her friend had feelings for her, and I just wasn't really into that at all. There's also some pretty gruesome murders, but generally, if you want a dark romance, you might like it. I like the cover, I will say. Then I read Steel's Edge, which is the Edge number 4 by Ilona Andrews. I gave this one 5 stars. Content warnings, infertility for our main character, death of characters, medical, surgery, slavery. She is like the best healer in the land, but she cannot have children. And she finds out that, you know, her husband isn't interested in being with her. She can't have children. So she goes to the Edge, and she is having trouble controlling her magic because they're not supposed to harm. They're only supposed to heal. And the magic doesn't like that imbalance. And then he is the older brother / older cousin of our previous 2 main characters. And he is working on shutting down slavery that is technically illegal but still thriving because his younger sister was taken. They got her back, but she was never the same. And so he's actively working to shut it down. And some side characters that you really like die. I cried. I cried. There's just a lot. This one's pretty sad. I would be careful going into it. I told my co-host for the Ilona Andrews read along to, you know, not put it off to where they have to read it when they're not ready. Like, pace yourselves with this one. My overall series thoughts remain the same. It's good. It is clearly Ilona Andrews, but I would only recommend it if you're already an Ilona Andrews stan and you just want to read more of their books. If you want to start with Ilona Andrews, do not start with The Edge. Start with Hidden Legacy or Kate Daniels. Then I read Slashed by Talia Sanchez. I gave this 4 stars. This is a killer in a haunted house. And she thinks that he's a scare worker, and she has sex with him, and he doesn't kill her. And that's all I'll tell you. I will say there were a couple things I was pretty worried about, and they ended up being fine. But, you know, he's wearing a silver mask. He has a bloody knife. She's really into it. Then I read Run Baby Run by Dee Sabia. I gave this 2 stars. This is another Halloween novella. This is non-con, religious trauma, almost feels fake, like BDSM. So it was like a non-con scene, right? And then like the aftermath didn't quite make sense for that. So I have read this before where I thought I was reading non-con, and then like the page turns and oh, it was just a scene. And I almost feel like that's what this one is like, but I don't have proof of that. Like, I feel like there's supposed to be another book, but I won't be reading it. But so that's kind of my impression, but I could be wrong on that. Yeah, it was a lot, and I don't recommend. Then I read Wickedly Sweet by Steph Macca. This I gave 4 stars. So this is, they're in Salem for Halloween. She and her brother's 2 best friends. She just broke up with her boyfriend for cheating on her. She's a virgin. She's going to have her first time with both of her brother's best friends as they take part in a witch hunt. She's the witch, they're the hunters, and they're gonna have a scene in the maze. It was good. That's all I really got for you. Wasn't the best Halloween steamy novella I've ever read. It certainly wasn't the worst. It wasn't even the worst this month, so it was pretty good, and I had never heard of it before. I actually read it because it showed up on Goodreads. Both of the last 2 I read, it showed up on Goodreads under people who had also read Slashed by Talia Sanchez, and I was in the mood, so I read them. Then last but not least, I read Too Good to Be True by Kristen Ashley. I gave this 5 stars. This came out on Halloween. I read the whole entire thing. as one does. So this one, he, is gentry in England. He's nobility, yada yada. And she is the daughter of a billionaire. So they're both very, very rich. Very rich. And her sister is engaged to his brother. And so it's a meeting of the families. And there are some things happening, some like paranormal things, and it's like, I don't know. And he's like very into her right away, and she's like kind of into him, and she's there with her stepmother, who is 5 years older than she is, and it was her father's third wife, and they are there. And content warning for a brain tumor that will not be lethal. Her father died of cancer, and then both of their fathers have cheated on their significant others extensively. The paranormal explanations and happenstance and things were questionable. They were questionable. I would even argue that maybe they were not 5-star material. I would even argue that. However, it was still a 5-star book, okay? Don't talk to me. I paid $5.99. I read it for 9 hours. On release day, and I loved every minute of it. Every minute of it. I would do it again. I would do it, I don't know what to tell you. I am a Kristen Ashley stan. Did I start with this one? Probably not. Probably not. I have 3 starting places that I would recommend, and that's kind of it. But I love Kristen Ashley, and this is quintessential Kristen Ashley. And it's her new release. What more do you want from me? What do you want? So that's it. That's all the books that I read in October. I did DNF almost as many as I read. So you have some interesting thoughts coming there. But let me know if you have read or want to read any of these, or if you have any recommendations for me based on the books that I liked, or even based on some of the things that I didn't like in some of my lower rated books. You might be like, hey, this might be a much better version of that book. So let me know, please. I always appreciate it, even though I'm really bad at reading things that people tell me to read. All right, thanks so much for watching. Bye.